So, folks, we have to talk about the fact that centrist Democrats and the establishment broadly are continuing to freak out over the fact that um, both AOC's endorsed candidates and Zoran Mamdani's endorsed candidates managed to win their respective primary races. And one of the cool things that I think might allude to some level of collaboration between AOC and Mamdani is that their endorsements did not seem to overlap, as far as I can tell. And I find that really interesting, if that coordination is indeed happening. Now let's take a look. I wanted to show you guys this particular clip.
You talked about this week.
This is actually really quiet. Let me boost the sound here.
Kind of how the fear-mongering, you had deja vu, I think is how you described it. And you just alluded to that and what you just said now. What advice are you giving or would you have for these new members who are coming in and are already being painted in a certain way? And I want to talk about them too, but what advice do you have for them about how to get things done while still shaking up the system at the same time?
Yeah, I think new and incoming members have no shortage of advice that's being given to them.
Well, but you lived it.
Yes,
you lived it in a very different way.
Yes, and I mean, I'll get to them, but I actually think the more important advice that I would give would be to my incumbent colleagues, which is you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy by deciding who these young women are before you've met them. And if you are already panicking and sending little messages in your group chats about how these people need to be reined in and tamped down and shown their place, you are creating the antagonistic dynamic that we do not need. These are two young, talented, intelligent women that got elected against all odds, against millions of dollars. Perhaps there is something we can learn from them. Yeah.
And I think, again, AOC is being incredibly diplomatic here, while also simultaneously firing her own shot across the bow, right? Because what she's doing is effectively taking a side. Because with the primary wins in New York City, we have seen a schisming. We have seen a recognition among the centrist establishment Democrats that, oh no, these people are our enemies. And on the one hand, that is validating. It is validating that finally the progressive leftist movement has built up enough power to be recognized as an enemy. And on the other hand, I also want to say this is, I think, a particularly dangerous time, insofar as I think centrist Democrats are willing to immolate themselves in an effort to destroy progressive challengers. And I find it really interesting because the progressives that are coming into power here, they're doing it in safe blue districts. This is ostensibly where, like, the idea and ideals of the Democratic Party should be the strongest. And the rejection of those ideas by the establishment, I think, is incredibly telling. I think it is. I think it is a betrayal of the Democratic base. It is a betrayal of all of the, normie libs who march in No Kings. It is a betrayal of all of these people who organized against ICE in their communities. And I don't think establishment and centrist Dems really realize that. They've been so used to coasting into victory in a lot of these blue areas that they've lost the fighting instinct. They've lost the ability to organize amongst themselves and to properly leverage power. Because what centrists have tended to do is not actually run a ground game at all, but instead spend a lot of money and use their pre-existing network of connections among mainstream media to put a lot of stories out there. But the problem, stories about different candidates, attacks, etc., smears, the problem is that's not working anymore because more and more people, especially young people, and I'm going to show you evidence of that in a bit, are realizing mainstream media sucks and they need progressive challengers. But I wanted to show you guys this because I think it is very related, which is this article from Reuters, which New York City freezes rents for 1 million apartments in Mayor Mamdani victory. That's right, folks. New York City Housing Board voted on Thursday to freeze the rents for about 1 million regulated apartments for up to 2 years, fulfilling a central campaign promise of Mayor Zoran Mamdani only months into his term. Now, the thing is, this is one of those achievements that centrist Dems look down their noses at progressives for, right? Because centrist Dems are like, well, that doesn't do anything. That isn't good enough. You know, we need to be building out more apartments. We need to be building out more housing. We'll have a public-private partnership to funnel money into corporations that donated to my campaign in order to build out more housing. But the issue is, and what, again, establishment Democrats don't realize, is that many people are angry as hell. They're angry at the exploitation that they experience on a day-to-day basis. They are angry about the exploitation and the corruption they see in their government officials. They are angry about the blatant failures of Democratic leadership in particular to listen to them. They're angry about the intractability of Congress. They're angry about the clear ideological biases of SCOTUS. They are angry. They are angry. They are angry. They are angry. But you know who they're not angry at? They're not angry at the people freezing their rent. They're not angry at the progressives. And in fact, they are more than willing to organize for progressives. They are more than willing to knock on doors for progressives and leftists. They are more than willing to put in the work that directly counteracts money. Okay? And this is a huge problem. I want to give you guys an example here, all right?
I woke up and learned that my rent will not increase for the next 2 years. And I will tell you with 100% certainty that no amount of therapy, no amount of journaling, no amount of manifestation, no amount of breath work could have regulated my system like learning that at least my rent will be frozen for the next 2 years. And this is your reminder that your politicians, your government, owe you a regulated nervous system. Let me give you a radical idea. Stop healing. The entire self-help industry in the United States, for the most part, not all, it is a distraction to take away from the fact that our governments, all of these systems are dysregulating us, and instead we're here internalizing it. And I will tell you that the simple fact of knowing that my rent is frozen for the next 2 years has done more for my nervous system than the last 4 years of trying everything to feel better.
Now, this is the thing, right? People remember this kind of relief. People remember who gave it to them. People remember who allowed them to take a deep breath and actually relax a little bit because you aren't being pushed to the point of deprivation, pushed to the point where you have to choose between food and rent. Like, people remember that shit. And when socialists get into office and then actually deliver, that is a colossal, colossal problem for establishment Democrats who just want to grill and chill and keep the status quo so that they can keep giving kickbacks to their biggest donors. And that, I think, is why you are seeing just absolute shit fits being thrown. And you know, what's funny to me is, like, even the most mild-mannered of these progressives that are being elected, they're able to, like, really roughly criticize the Democratic Party. Here's Brad Lander on MS Now, posted in vertical format because Brad Lander be like that.
New Yorkers are fed up with the status quo that's not working for them. You got housing and healthcare and all the prices skyrocketing. And people see Democrats, instead of fighting for them, taking money from corporate PACs funded by Wall Street and crypto and AI and APAC. And I think voters are saying we're tired of that. We want folks who are going to fight for working families. Luckily in New York, we can do that with a lot of joy right now, coming off the Knicks win and Mayor Mamdani's win. But it's like being Mr. Rogers, but with a steel spine. New Yorkers are
like, come on, that's a great line. Mr. Rogers with a steel spine basically describes Brad's entire brand of politics. It's great. It's great. But he's right. People are angry. When you see Democrats and progressives coming up in politics saying people are fed up with the status quo, people are fed up with the system, it's because it's not just like, I'm so fed up. It's like blood-curdling screams of rage and agony as people are trying to balance like the bills of having children and the needs of being a functional human and all of this and how it works and is commodified by our entire system. There's a lot of suffering there that gets, shunted off to the back of people's brains, but it's still there. I think what's really interesting is that there are some Republicans out there who can understand exactly what is happening right now. And I want to share with you guys a post by James Woods the day after Mamdani's endorsements all swept their respective primaries, right? I know, James Woods, virulent Republican, but here is his post. Dollar store Obama has a tough choice now. Embrace the full-blown communism of the Mamdani/AOC/Sanders SDA, Socialist Democrats of America. Can't even get the name of the org right. Or cut out the cancer of the radical left party and save what's left of the old guard, somewhat rational Democrat Party. The former are growing like flies, thanks in large part to the tsunami of illegal Muslims swamping the nation. That part is utterly bizarre to me and is only born out of James Woods' deep, deep racism. While the more moderate Democrat regulars are shrinking in a maelstrom of Trump-hating madness, they can cheat in the next election maybe one last time, but the country at large is sick of it, and poor Hakeem can't dodge the grim realities much longer. The Democrat Party is imploding. To kind of like contextualize this a little bit, James Woods is correct that the DSA, the progressive wing of the party, is an existential threat to the centrist establishment shills who want to maintain control at all costs. It is a threat. And progressives should be a threat to establishment power because establishment power has failed the general American populace for far too long. Chuck Schumer is ostensibly leader of the Democrats in the Senate and ostensibly one of the leading voices of the Democrats in Washington, D.C., and he is one of the most hated politicians in America because of his failures. Hakeem Jeffries is hated by Democrats because of his failures. But both cling on to power because establishment Democrats have, put out their roots and dug down deep, and they cling on to that power for all they got. And they've got millions upon millions of dollars to do it. From their donors, from corporations, from billionaires, etc. And the issue here is that the battle lines have been drawn, right? You get pieces in the New York Times running like this. Centrist Democrats rebuke party's left wing. We are capitalist, not socialist. And it's like, okay, but you guys might be capitalists, but the reforms that people are demanding and asking for aren't. And that kind of disconnect, that kind of dissonance cannot abide much longer. We're at a breaking point, right? We're at a really big breaking point in our political system. And one of the things driving that, and why Democrats are establishment Democrats, and I want to make sure we're making a distinction here, are panicking, is because they have the internal polling about how Democrats are doing broadly. And I just want to show you guys one thing here, right? This is a Yale Youth poll, came out not too long ago. This part really stood out to me. Younger Democrats favor Harris and AOC in hypothetical 2028 primary. Older Democrats prefer Newsom. But as you can see here, even this headline really undersells it, because when you start looking at Kamala Harris versus AOC in 2028, you see the age breakdown. You see that the same number of people in the 18 to 22, practically the same number of people in the 18 to 22 age bracket prefer Kamala Harris, and slightly less prefer AOC. But then you start seeing absolute blowouts in the 23 to 29-year-old, 33% to 22%. The 30 to 34%, 30 to 34 age demographic, it's 24 to 30%. And like, even when you get to 35 to 44, you're still seeing 16%. You're still seeing on par with Gavin Newsom. And it's only when you get to 45 to 64 and 65 plus that support for the more progressive AOC starts falling off in this polling, right? And this is the problem. The problem is that when we look at the polls for, hey, who, like what, Trump's popularity, look at this. Overall, Donald Trump is very unpopular, but specifically among younger voters, he's like 68% of 18 to 22 hate Donald Trump. 72% of the 23 to 29-year-old demographic hate Donald Trump. 75% of the 30 to 34 age bracket hate Donald Trump, right? So the problem here with these two polls is that Democrats know, oh, okay, there's going to be a massive backslide against Republicans. But who is going to benefit from that when there is the younger demographics, the most numerous demographics, I want to add, are solidly in favor of more progressive candidates? That's what that youth polling on Harris versus AOC is, right? That's the problem. They're terrified because it's not just about AOC and Kamala Harris. It is a question of, do you prefer the establishment Democrat or the progressive Democrat? And more people are filtering over to the progressive Democrats, specifically because establishment Dems have had their shot. They've had their shot at fixing it. They had their shot at fixing it with Joe Biden. They had their shot at running a campaign that centrist Democrats wanted with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in 2024, and it failed spectacularly. And, to give Joe Biden some credit, a lot of his economic reforms were good, but the communication around them was terrible. And people did not feel in the moment as if it was improving the economy, right? Which is why someone like Zoran Mamdani actually delivering something that is immediate relief, that is palpable and long in duration, that is a big deal. It's a really big deal. Establishment Democrats, instead of going, oh, okay, here's what we can learn from Zoran Mamdani. Here's what we can learn from these primary losses. We need to recalibrate our policy positions. Instead of doing that, they're saying, we're going to smear you with op-eds. We are going to come at you in the press. We are going to do our damnedest to bury you guys and make you politically irrelevant. It is, instead of watching and learning and growing, it is instead, we must destroy progressives and leftists. And what that means is, progressives and leftists going forward, we have a very real opportunity We have a very real opportunity here to change the very fabric of the Democratic Party and show what actually works when Democrats that are socialist or leftist or progressive actually get into office. That's what is needed here. Because the conservative Democrats, they're the ones who have failed us. The Hakeem Jeffries, the Chuck Schumers. Their time is done, and people are angry as fuck about it, right? Evelyn Normie Lib is, sharpening her blades, as it were. But let's take a look here. Centrist Democrats have reacted with a very different tone. Alarm. We are capitalists, not socialists, reads a letter titled The Promise to America, signed by a group of moderate House Democrats 2 days after the primaries. With 4 months until midterm elections, the outcomes in New York have deepened divisions in the Democratic Party, threatening to unleash a renewed internal debate about electability and how Democrats speak about capitalism. In Congress and elsewhere, some moderates have quickly distanced themselves from the victorious far-left candidates, worrying Republicans will use them to paint the entire party as extreme. But this is the thing, right? And this is the thing that anyone who is young enough to have used the internet before will already intuitively understand, which is that Republicans were going to slander and call people on the left extreme no matter what they do. They called Obama a communist. They called Joe Biden a communist. They called Kamala Harris a communist. They've used the word so much that it doesn't mean anything to Republicans anymore other than someone I don't like. And the issue here is that I gotta be completely honest with you guys. This doesn't work anymore. If all Democrats that run are going to be called, communist Marxists anyway, then you might as well run people who are going to do good things instead of constantly cowering in the face of that criticism. It's genuinely baffling to me, but moderates continue to act like, well, if they call us communists, it'll hurt our chances at victory. It doesn't, because they already do that, and Democrats still win. So, I don't know, seems kind of stupid. Let's continue going through this, though. Organizers of the letter, which had been released earlier this month, unveil the first 15 signatories on Thursday, 2 days after the primary results, that put Democratic Socialists on track to double their ranks in the House. Politics forces false choices between extremes on right and left, the letter said. We reject them. The issue here, and the thing that I would love if more media would call out, is that it is not equivalent, yet you cannot equivocate the left and the right, right? The people who are considered far left in America want homeless people to be housed. They want people, regardless of who they are, to have health care. They want people everywhere to be fed. These are not the same as the goals of the far right, which is mass ethnic cleansing, stripping of fundamental human rights, increased security state that is increasingly weaponized and militarized against the American public. This is not the same goal. Clearly, these two goals are not the same. So whenever you see somebody online or in the media saying, well, the extreme left and the extreme right are basically the same, we reject both of these things, understand that the people on the left are the ones who want to give you health care. The people on the right don't want you to have children if you're gay. The people on the right don't want you to be able to get married if you're gay. The people on the right want to literally ban books from your library. They want to pretend there are questions to be asked about the Holocaust. The people on the right who are on the extreme end, they are not the same as the folks on the left. I think it is a great red flag to note when someone says, I reject the far left and the far right. That is a big red flag. The letter is led by Representative Tom Suozzi, a New York Democrat who flipped a swing district on Long Island 2 years ago. He said the group aimed to secure signatures from 20 Democratic candidates, 200 state and local officials, and 2,000 activists, and to build a movement. He's contending with an ascendant left-wing movement growing in New York City, where Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, endorsed a slate of 3 House primary candidates who identify as Democratic socialists. Those candidates swept their races, empowering the activist left and alarming moderate Democrats. In an interview, Mr. Susie said, "That message from Tuesday is not the message that I embrace, and that his party needed to do a better job making clear what we do believe in." I'm sorry, but the Democratic Party's main problem right now isn't making clear what the Democratic Party believes in. The problem that the Democratic Party is facing right now is the fact that it has failed fundamentally the American public. Why are there still members of Congress voting to confirm Trump judges? Why are Democrats still doing that? Why are Democrats still moving through legislation that is favored by Donald Trump? Why are they not using every single procedural hurdle at their disposal? Denying quorum, for example, a prime example of this. Why are they not just constantly doing that? Why haven't they run the tape back on what Mitch McConnell did under Obama and just running that again against Trump? There are so many things that Democrats in Congress could be doing right now, but are choosing not to. And so when we start looking at like, well, the Democratic Party needs to do a better job doing, telling people what we believe. No one gives a fuck about what you believe. They give a fuck about what you do. Like, I gotta be completely honest. No one would give a fuck about Zoran Mamdani being a socialist if he was completely incompetent and nothing was getting done in New York City. That would actively harm the movement, but no one would be like, oh, well, what's important is what he believes, not what he actually delivers. No, what is important is that when you are in elected office, when you are voted to represent people, you deliver. That is what is important. The DSA is literally running on this that Dems have been promising since the Clinton era. We don't believe them at all. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, Democrats have been promising for years to fix their shit, and they haven't been doing it. And so now DSA members are getting elected in the Democratic Party in order to actually do the things that Democrats have been promising. There was that, I forget who it was from. Yeah, like, guys, this is how Republicans reacted to Bill Clinton in the 90s. All right. Oh, but if we elect people on the far left who are Democratic socialists, they'll be mean to us. Here's Bill Clinton, the most Reagan-like Democrat ever elected.
Bill Clinton's vision for a better America includes job quotas for homosexuals, giving homosexuals special civil rights, allowing homosexuals in the armed forces. Al Gore supports homosexual couples adopting children and becoming foster parents. Is this your vision for a better America? For more information on traditional family values, contact the Christian Action Network.
Like, these are the kinds of attack ads that they ran against Clinton. This is what, like, got DOMA passed, all right? This is from Matt Baum, by the way. A great YouTuber. Go check out Matt Baum. Shout out. He does a lot of great stuff with queer history in the United States. Highly recommend that YouTube channel. One thing that I find really interesting, and I do want to highlight, I think this Politico article in particular is worth reading. It's very, very good. But not because it's, like, well written, but because I think it reveals exactly what centrist Democrats are thinking at the moment. Centrist Democrats are freaking out about progressives' winning streak. By the way, I read this shortly after ending my stream yesterday, and it basically validated everything that I said in my segment on centrist Dems yesterday as well. All right, but basically, it's more pearl clutching. It's more freaking out. The far left is eyeing even bigger targets in key battleground primaries that will determine control of Congress as well as governorships in crucial swing states. Most importantly, moderates fear that a progressive primary sweep could imperil the party's hopes of beating Republicans this fall. They also have a more fundamental fear that progressives are becoming more mainstream as they keep winning, reshaping the Democratic Party. And I do want to say, I'm very excited to read that in Politico. I'm very excited to read that in Politico because the entire thing, the entire push of my channel for like the last 2 years has been, hey, join your local Dems, join your local DSA. We need to have a takeover of the Democratic Party. And boy, howdy, some of y'all have listened to me. Some of you have listened to me and gone to your local Democratic meetings. Some of you have listened to me and gone to your local DSA meetings. And that organizing is not in vain, friends. That organizing is not in vain. It is right now shaking the very foundations of the Democratic Party. And that is a glorious thing. That is a great thing. That is something to be proud of, right? Centrist Democrats, normie Democrats, need to realize we're the insurgents and they're the new establishment, said Liam Kerr, a co-founder of the moderate-aligned Welcome Pack. It's a long-term structural problem more than it is any particular win. So what's really interesting here to me is that, and one of the reasons I find this article particularly interesting to read, is that Politico tends to interview not political scientists, not for articles like this anyway. They don't go interview like people who study political history or scientists or whatever. They go and they interview political partisans, specifically moderate political partisans, right? I've pointed this out before, but in this Politico piece, why are you talking to the leadership of an ideologically centrist political pack? Like, why do that instead of like an expert in the field? Obviously, if you talk to somebody who is working for a pack, they're going to advertise the ideology of the pack. This is not journalism, especially when you are focusing on what the people who are paid to organize for centrist shills, for the establishment Democrats. Like, that's insane. And yet Politico does this all the time. So just something to be aware of, especially when you're reading political content or politics news. Who are they talking to? And registering, hey, if somebody is being highlighted here in this article as the co-founder of the moderate-aligned Welcome Pack, there's somebody who views progressives as an enemy. And when someone like that says that Democratic Socialists winning office is a long-term structural problem, more than it is any one particular win, what they're saying is the problem to be worked on within the Democratic Party is how do you restructure the Democratic Party to deny popular support victories within the primary process, right? That's what he's saying. When he says it's a structural problem that Democratic Socialists are winning, what he's saying is it should no longer be that, hey, popular candidates within the Democratic Party get it through the primary process and become the nominee. No, he's saying, no, we need to fix that problem. We need to make sure only our guys win. And I find that particularly revealing about what centrist Democrats actually think, right? Now, I do think it is interesting here, some of these quotes. See, and here's a quote from Abdul Al-Sayed. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Michigan. I think we're seeing it happen across the country now, that folks are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So certainly we are going to harness that. Absolutely. Now, also want to point out here that, of course, they also got the thoughts of Matt Bennett, the co-founder of Third Way. Yes, that Third Way that went after Hassan Piker. These races might have some impact on 2026 if Republicans weaponize the craziest ideas of these candidates against mainstream Democrats running in blue districts. Now, the reason Matt Bennett frames it in this way is that he is trying to say, you know, if these Democratic Socialists win in places like New York, well, then that's going to bring down all the Democrats. Democrats in maybe more competitive districts, well, they're going to be destroyed by being associated in the same political party as these Democrats over here that are democratic socialists. But again, Republicans are going to call however moderate the Democrat, they're going to call him a communist. But then I read a blessed series of words like this. The Blue Dogs, Democrats' House centrist coalition and campaign allies are worried as well. Blue Dog Action's Phil Gardner, no relation, said it's imperative that moderate Democrats in swing districts address Republican attacks head on and put distance between themselves and the left flank of their party. Quote, the reason they do that is because it works. Gardner said of GOP efforts to tie moderates to progressives, candidates running in these competitive seats should not rely on just anti-Trump sentiment or the Democratic brand, because you're basically putting your destiny in the hands of forces outside your control. Which is, I think, another recurring statement you notice in a lot of these quotes from these think tanks and political action committees, which is, oh, the Democratic Socialists are going to introduce variables that are outside your control. Because Democrats in office, these establishment types, they want to maintain a political machine that allows them to pick and choose who the victors of any given primary are. They want to maintain that control because it allows them to maintain status quo. Their problem is with the concept of democracy itself. And what's wild to me is that a lot of these political think tanks and action committees, they're just out there saying it right now. They're so mad that the mask is off. I do think it is very interesting to see happen. Because the Blue Dog Democrats have been a thorn in the side of progressive policymaking for ages. And honestly, anything that moves us closer to making them an irrelevant force in Congress is a move towards giving us a Congress that can actually act and make things better for everyday working people in this country. I don't know. I take some hope in the tears from these centrists. I will also say, on a similar note, why I wish Phil Gardner would ask, hey, why does it work to tie moderate Democrats to more progressive Democrats in GOP attack ads? Why does that work? Well, I think I know why. And it works because moderate Democrats do not functionally deliver in ways that average working people actually see the benefit of. That's the problem. Because moderate Democrats are too busy juggling phone calls from their biggest donors to actually care about the plight of working people. Because, who are those working people going to vote for anyway? We're the only game in town. And so, this is the issue. Is that when you cede ideological ground to conservatives, when you ignore parts and the failures of the Democratic Party, when you ignore the failures to deliver, that gives ideological real estate for Republicans to fearmonger on. It's exactly what happened with Kamala Harris and trans issues. She didn't say the word transgender once during her campaign, and yet people said afterwards that her stance on trans issues lost her the campaign. And again, that's just bullshit analysis. She didn't advocate for trans people at all during her campaign. And the reason the Republicans were able to come in and fearmonger successfully on trans issues at all was because she didn't say anything about it. And if she had actually defended trans people, I think she would have come out very differently from those attacks. She talked about trans surgeries for prisoners. Yeah, but when did she talk about trans surgeries for prisoners? She talked about it in 2019. And then she refused to talk about it during her campaign. And so that's the problem. The problem is when you don't stand on your positions, when you don't have principles, what happens is that Republicans take clips out of context from past speeches or past public appearances, and then they can do and fearmonger however much they like about those. And because you're not willing to stand up and defend yourself, it's basically like standing there and getting punched in the face repeatedly. People view it as weakness. People view it as fundamentally, well, you're not, if you're not going to stand up for this, then you're not going to stand up for anything else that you're doing. And like, it's very simple on the trans prisoners question, which is, hey, prisoners deserve medical care. Prisons should not be torture dungeons. Full stop. And the answer is wider and more generally. You then transition into talking about how, in fact, everybody in America deserves health care. Everybody deserves that shit. Sex changes for prisoners is a low priority, in my opinion. Again, I want you to understand what you're doing right now is coming in here and saying, I think medical care for prisoners is a low priority. And, you know, I think that that's the exact kind of attitude that has made our prisons hotbed for things like rape, torture, abuse, death. I think that kind of attitude is exactly what has turned our prisons into hellscapes. And I reject it. I reject it emphatically. And I think that prisoners, as well as every other person in America, deserve health care. It's not difficult to mark out that position and defend it. It's not difficult to get up and say with your full chest, hey, I don't think we should be torturing people in prisons by denying them the health care they need. That's not a difficult position. How do you pay for it? It's literally cheaper to provide the health care. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, people are always asked, how do you pay for it? It's literally cheaper. It is cheaper to provide preventative care than to wait for it to turn into a life-threatening issue, right? It is cheaper to put in the extra financing to prevent people from developing things like diabetes. Really, the doctors get cheaper? Yes! This is what I'm saying, right? Which is cheaper? Somebody who needs constant surgeries and transplants and blood infusions and dialysis because they have diabetes? Or someone who goes in, gets preventative care, and never develops diabetes? Which is more expensive? Which is more expensive? Why do I have to pay for it? For the same reason you don't want to step over dead bodies on your way to work in the morning. Because if you don't pay for it, people die. And also, at some point, you will be needing that healthcare. So why would it be in your best interest to pay for it? So that you get it. It's literally cheaper if we just provide it to everyone. And honestly, if you're so much of like a serial killer type that you're just like, well, everyone else should just die and I'd be fine. Like, frankly, society is not for you, my friend. I have it. I pay for it. You do realize you're going to get old, right? Do you know what happened to old people before the Affordable Care Act? Do you know what happened to old people before Medicaid? Do you know what happened to people before Medicare? They died a lot younger. Look, literally, the reason we have Medicare and Medicaid is so that we don't have old people dying in the streets. Yeah, so people like you didn't die in the gutter. That's like the entire point on those programs was to keep people like you alive. And now we live in a world where we have more data, and it turns out we could just give everyone healthcare. It would be cheaper than how much we spend on healthcare now, and no one would have to die from lack of healthcare in this country ever again. But instead, people are like, no. You have to understand, those poor billionaire medical companies might go out of business. To which I respond, I would prefer that those businesses cease to exist than people die preventable deaths. So you want to burden society longer? It's literally a bigger burden right now. It's literally a bigger burden on society right now to not have universal health care. But I get, like, you're like, well, who would pay for it? Why should I pay for it? I don't know, the same reason you pay for taxes that pay for roads. The same reason you pay taxes for fire departments and police departments. The same reason you pay taxes in general so that the country doesn't get invaded. You know, the same reason, to keep your fellow citizens alive, to keep society functional, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can't get on board with that, then, like, you're just not built for society. Like, go, please, by all means, exit. I use those things? Yeah. And guess what? Only other people paying for them make it possible. And you know what? You know what else makes it possible? Other people being alive. So you should want other people to be alive to pay into these programs, because then it makes better services possible for everybody, even if you're the most self-interested bastard alive. You're telling me to work to support other people? When you pay your taxes, that's literally what the taxes are for. It's so society can continue to function. You know, in past generations, they would call it civic responsibility, but I guess people of your generation just never learned that. You know, you've got a civic duty. You know, this is something like my grandfather felt after the attack on Pearl Harbor when he signed up to go fight in World War II. And, you know, I guess someone like you could never understand that particular impulse to defend the country and make it better. Literal baby-brained morons. Anyway, I'm going to continue. But thank you for the distraction. Thank you for letting me make those arguments. And hopefully they help you guys out there. All right. Let's see here. Now, all of this centrist opposition has materialized financially, specifically prior to all of this, right? Here's the Michigan Daily from back in May talking about how centrist political action groups had spent $5 million trying to back Haley Stevens in Michigan against Abdul Sayed. And this is, I think,
it's
something that's going to continue.
It's so painful to watch the older generation not understand the basics of how the country they gave us F% works.
It's true. And I do want to say, not every older person and every older generation fails to grasp this. We have many people in this very community of various generations who all understand the basic premise of what it takes to make a society work and understand the basic premise of civic duty and the responsibility we have to one another as neighbors, right? And I do want to say, absolutely, some people don't get that, but I think overwhelmingly more and more people are waking up to understand this very basic and fundamental truth. But this is something we are going to start seeing more and more of, right? The dropping of millions and millions and millions of dollars to try and oppose democratic socialists and lefties in general. And the issue is they have a finite amount of money. Now, they think right now they have practically infinite reserves of cash. But the issue is they cannot spend like this on every state level race. They cannot spend like this on every national level race. They cannot spend like this on every local race. And that problem is going to continue to get worse for them as they have to drop more and more money to oppose progressive leftists. And this in turn, you know, is how you're going to continue to see establishment Democrats completely and utterly enrage their base. Here is from Colorado. Many of you may be familiar with Tina Peters. Jared Polis decided to release Tina Peters from prison, saying, oh, she seems very sorry. And people in Colorado and people around the country are furious with Jared Polis, right? Here is Tina Peters on a podcast just the other day.
Especially with this remorse thing. I'll bring that up again. Oh, you know, Polis shouldn't have let her out because she shows no remorse. No, I do show remorse. The remorse is that people that should be in prison are not.
Yeah.
That's my remorse. The remorse for me is that the things that were exposed, nothing's been done about, especially with this.
She tried to help overthrow the United States democracy. She was one of the people in Colorado behind the false electors bullshit. But what she's saying here is that she thinks that the people who put her in prison in the first place should be the ones in prison. This is what it gets you. This is what centrist Democrats get you. They release and empower the worst tendencies among the Republican Party. This is fundamentally a colossal issue, because every time you make a concession to Republicans, it empowers these people who are trying actively to overthrow America.
Remorse thing.
God, with their remorse thing. And meanwhile, you have Donald Trump over here, and frankly, it's truly just the incompetence.
I submitted my vote for
right?
Julie Gonzalez today in Colorado for Senate.
Hell yeah.
Make sure to vote in before June 30th.
Hell yeah, Mr. Pibb. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Here is a clip that I think is just kind of related to how absolutely absurdly weak Republicans are right now.
Loitering is not permitted in this area. Please proceed to a designated location. Thank you for your cooperation.
Merrick Garland embodies centrists failing to meet the call.
Very true, Andrew S. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah, so now they have automated speakers around the national the reflecting pool. It's now just automatically playing calls for people to disperse, and it's automatically saying that 2 National Guardsmen that have been deployed to patrol the reflecting pool.
Loitering is not permitted in this area. Please proceed to a designated location. Thank you for your cooperation.
This is how weak the Republican movement is right now. This is how weak MAGA is right now. Right? The incompetence truly is overwhelming. And because Democrats, and centrist Democrats in particular, recognize the weakness of MAGA going into 2026 and going into 2028, the problem then becomes, and the reason they're freaking out, is because their opponents are so weak that until progressives came on the scene, these establishment Democrats were the best game in town. They had it made. They didn't have to do shit. And now suddenly there are people pushing them to the left. And they hate it. They hate it.
We had to make the reflecting pools cloudy because we don't like reflecting. That's a thing only libs do.
It's true. Reflecting and introspection was only invented in the 1970s by the woke left. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Now, also, just in case you didn't hate what Donald Trump is doing with, the reflecting pool and the different monument building around Washington, D.C., this piece from The Atlantic actually dropped today, describing how actually all of the national park budget is now being funneled into Donald Trump's DC renovation spree. So, all of the money that was supposed to go to keeping your national parks open and functional and, not prone to having huge wildfires and whatnot, all that money is now being funneled into Washington, D.C. to flatter Trump's ego, right? And that's, it's pretty interesting. I'll link this in the chat as well. The pathway that connects the White House residence to the Oval Office has long been paved in Tennessee flagstone. Every president since Harry Truman made the 45-second commute and made it without complaint until Donald Trump. The done rock would not do. Instead, Trump wanted polished African granite carved in Italy with a flamed finished stripe, slightly raised to prevent slips, running down the middle. As workers tore up the flagstone in March, a reporter asked Trump who was paying for the enhancements. "Paid for by me," he replied. But that wasn't true. Budget documents from the National Park Service that I obtained show the walkway replacement cost taxpayers $689,232 and is part of a $1.3 million project that included repairing adjacent stone and masonry and providing new hardware for nearby doors. A year earlier, in a separate brush project at request of POTUS, the National Parks the Park Service spent $347,503 to remove and replace the stucco on the colonnade wall, a project that cleared the way for Trump to affix gold frames and plaques mocking some of his predecessors. Yeah, so basically, he's robbing the National Park Service in order to flatter himself.
The Atlantic is one of those I sure do write good magazines. At least Harper's is funny sometimes.
I mean, I do hate a lot of the coverage from the Atlantic, but this piece was actually really good. So I'm going to link it in chat here. You guys can check it out for yourselves at your leisure. But this is the kind of thing where I understand, like, this isn't the biggest, most existential issue facing America right now, but it is one of the things that adds up to Democrats looking at the current administration and saying, oh man, we can beat this guy with our eyes closed. I mean, like, this, again, just yesterday, Todd Blanche conceded to violating law on Epstein files, judge finds. Court gives DOJ a week to remove redactions or justify them. Like, this administration is going, like bending over backwards to try and protect someone who's named in the Epstein documents hundreds of times. And is breaking the law to do it. This is stuff that, like, would normally kill your average administration, right? And JD Vance, meanwhile, just goes out there and says the quiet part out loud.
So we were talking about...
Oh God, it's so quiet. Jesus.
About this a little bit backstage, but I'm actually fascinated by Nixon as a character in history. I think that his historical legacy is enjoying a bit of a renaissance, but I think deservedly so. As I joked with Robert backstage, if Watergate happened tomorrow, it would be like a 12-hour news story. Like, the idea that it would have taken down a presidency is crazy. And by the way, if you look at the story of how the deep state took down Richard Nixon, it's not all that different from what the same groups of people, the same institutions tried to do to Donald Trump in the first Trump administration. There is a parallel.
Yeah, insert Nixon's quote about Jews from the tapes. And I can't remember. How did Nixon feel about Jewish people?
I'm named in the Epstein files more times than any president. Is Joe Biden or Barack Hussein Obama named any times? No, I'm named thousands of times.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. But also, like, this is the kind of damning quote that MAGA just feels empowered to say. Like, JD Vance just says that brazenly, openly. And, like, a lot of people in MAGA are just going to be like, oh, well, who cares? You know, Nixon so long ago. But, like, Nixon should have been brought down by the Watergate scandal. He was caught wiretapping and spying on his political opponents. That is something that should bring down a president. And when JD Vance says, haha, isn't it quaint that Nixon was brought down by spying on his political adversaries, using his power as president? How quaint. That would be a 12-hour story under Donald Trump. Ha ha ha. And it's just like, I'm sorry. That should be disqualifying in of itself. Yeah, the party of personal responsibility, just going out there and saying, hey, who gives a shit if you break the law as president?
It's not illegal. Richard Nixon.
It's literally Nixon again. But the issue is, we have moved the Overton window so far towards the right that conservatives are getting away with things that would break down a normal presidency. And we should not be complacent about that. That should not become normal. Hell, half of Republicans would just spontaneously combust in rage if, President AOC in 2029 started using her power the way Donald Trump has used his. And frankly, the problem and the thing that scares a lot of centrist Democrats is that someone from the left could actually get into power and use the broad powers of the president to actually bring about a better world for working class people. because that would directly harm the donors of the Democratic Party establishment, and it would directly end their political control and stranglehold on the political party of the democratic system. Like, understand, Zoran Mamdani getting elected in New York City has destroyed the establishment democratic hold on New York City. And in a similar way, getting someone ideologically committed to leftist, democratic, socialist values, progressive values, would shatter the control of the establishment Democrats here in America as well. Because what would happen if you had a president that actually started delivering like Zoran Mamdani does in New York City? What would happen? Can any of you even begin to wrap your heads around what kind of shattering of political power would happen if someone in that position actually used their power to help people?
I don't even wait. And when you're a president, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab 'em by the palantir. You can do anything.
It's true. It's true.
Call me daddy.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. And I also just want to add here one last thing, which is that there are a bunch of built-in costs to what is about to go down here in America. Because keep in mind, the big beautiful bill starts fucking people over after the midterms, starting next year. And there is going to be an absurd amount of political and economic damage done by that. And that is only going to empower folks on the left in the progressive wing more and more as we go forward towards 2028. Okay? And not only that, but the actions Donald Trump is taking right now are going to have sweeping ramifications, right? Because the Supreme Court just allowed for the ending of temporary protected status for Haitian individuals in the United States. Well, this is an article from the May 21st of this year. Ending TPS for Haiti could trigger care workforce crisis. Now, it turns out that a lot of the people who care for the elderly in this country are Haitian. And having an effort to ethnically cleanse Haitian people from the United States is actually going to cause a worker shortage when it comes to care for the elderly, which means a lot of people are going to die. They're going to lose their home health aides. They're going to lose the ability to be relatively independent. And overwhelmingly, that affects Republicans. But this is going to be an ongoing issue and labor issue going forward, right? Now, this article in particular is put together, it is called Leading Age, and it's a nonprofit for aging services providers. So what that means is it's a nonprofit that works with different providers for home health aides and like nursing homes, etc., for the elderly. And in this particular piece, its findings are intended to inform ongoing policy debates about TPS and healthcare workforce. For aging service providers, the report reinforces a key takeaway: immigration policy and workforce capacity are closely linked. Providers facing potential staffing losses should review Leading Age's ongoing coverage of issues, including context on the broader workforce issues and immigration border landscape, or broader landscape, as well as for emerging advocacy opportunities. Right? Key findings. President Trump's attempted termination of TPS would exacerbate healthcare workforce shortages, causing a significant loss of essential healthcare workers nationwide. The group noted that the workforce shortages will be further exacerbated by immigration challenges. Leading Age, which represents more than 5,300 aging service providers nationwide, stressed that workers with temporary status are vital to the aging services workforce, and that instability in immigration policy directly threatens continuity of care for older adults. Let's see here. The Massachusetts Senior Care Association, which represents nearly 350 long-term care facilities employing and caring for more than 100,000 individuals, estimated that roughly 2,000 direct care workers in Massachusetts have been or remain at risk of losing work authorization due to the end of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans' parole and possible TPS termination for Haitians. They warned that losing these workers on top of an existing 13% vacancy rate in direct care roles would hurt both resident care and facility capacity, because right now there has already been a shortage of staff for nursing home facilities. There is already one right now. The idea, oh well, if we get rid of all of these immigrants and refugees, then more jobs will be available for people. The jobs are available right now. Like the nursing homes are chronically understaffed. Let's take a look here. Every organization identified Haitian workers as central to the care force. NDWA cited estimates that 13,000 Haitian TPS holders work as nursing assistants, caring for roughly 65,000 patients daily, alongside 8,000 caregivers serving approximately 12,000 children and aging family members. These workforce dynamics are particularly pronounced in disability care settings, where consistent long-term relationships between caregivers and individuals are critical to maintaining stability, safety, and quality of life. One family member with the ARC of Massachusetts shared, "Most of my son's caregivers, especially in his group home, are immigrants. Will the federal directives targeting immigrants make it even harder than it has been to keep my son's life appropriately and safely staffed?" Another family member shared that Haitian workers are committed professionals, some of whom happen to be immigrants. If there is immigrant disruption, and programs that are already understaffed will be under tremendous pressure. This is going to cause colossal problems. Colossal problems. None of this makes sense. It makes very much sense. Here's the report. You can look at it yourself. All right. And I wanted to end here. End this particular segment of this video, because this video is going to be a long one. That Republicans are panicking. They already know how weak they are. They already know they are going to be holding the bill when Donald Trump is long gone. And here's Mike Johnson basically spelling out what he wants to have happen here as he sweats bullets and looks like the least reliable person to ever exist.
If we were to lose the midterms, heaven forbid, these Democrats, y'all, impeachment's not even the big concern. They will turn every committee of Congress into an investigative body, and they'll go after the president's family, the cabinet, his donors and friends. Half of you in this room will be targeted. I run the protection program. I'll take care of you, okay? We're going to win. We're going to win the midterm, okay? All right? If we were to lose the
we're going to win the midterm. Don't worry. I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you guys. Don't worry about it, guys. Like, goddamn. He does not instill a whole lot of confidence. Now, I do want to point out here that we are going to have an opportunity to test in the upcoming weeks and months the strength of the progressive challenge to establishment power. All right? And by that I mean we have multiple races that people should be keeping an eye on. Specifically up next is the Colorado Democratic primary, which is on June 30th. So that's coming up here in, just a few days, really. And one of the big races to keep an eye on there is Melat Quiros, who has internal polling that shows her doing very well. But people do need to show up, all right? People do need to show up. Polling shows the race is neck and neck, including a survey conducted by Quiros' backers that indicates she may even be in the lead.
If the Democrats were an actual leftist party, all would be targeted, not just half. The GOP should be over yesterday.
Oh, it should be. Like, there should be a Democrat running in every single district, every single race. And there should be resources behind those candidates. You know? Absolutely, there should be money flowing into those candidates. But there are also other races to keep an eye on, okay? Here is another contender in Colorado, Manny Rutinel, who is going up against Shannon Byrd. Shannon Byrd is the establishment candidate here. Here's an excerpt from a debate that they had with Colorado's best newsman acting as moderator.
Congressman Evans spends a whole lot of his time attacking Democrats at the state level in Colorado. And I could see him trying to make the race against either of you less about what he and President Trump are doing in Washington and more about what elected Democrats are doing in Colorado. So, if he says that your decisions have made Colorado less affordable, less safe, less open to business, less friendly to energy production, how will you answer that charge in the general election? Ms. Byrd.
Oh, I'm happy to have that conversation with Gabe Evans. Every vote he has taken has been a vote to hurt the people in Colorado's 8th Congressional District. He has taken votes to rip health care away from tens of thousands of people.
He wants to talk about your votes. Talk about your votes. You know that is the criticism of Democrats in Colorado. Less safe, less affordable, less friendly to business. How will you answer that charge?
The affordability crisis can be laid right at the feet of Donald Trump and Gabe Evans through tariff policy, creating retaliatory trade wars in our export markets, hurting businesses for that reason, causing costs to go sky high with the Trump administration's erratic behavior, causing interest rate markets to be incredibly volatile. That hurts affordability for everyone. People can't buy new homes now because mortgage interest rates keep going up. People can't make a plan. So when we look at housing affordability and we look at the cost of energy, and again, I'll bring back those tax credits and grants that we were expecting to help scale up renewable energy. These are all programs that Donald Trump cut that at the end of the day are going to make our utility bills more expensive.
Ms. Byrd, thank you. Mr. Runa, how will you answer if Gabe Evans tries to make this race a referendum on what Democrats have done to Colorado? You know what it sounds like: less safe, less affordable, less friendly to business. How do you answer for your votes and what collectively Democrats have done?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if Gabe Evans tries to distract voters from his horrific policies. We need fighters, and I'm proud to have co-sponsored over 400 laws that have become the law of the land here in Colorado to stand up to Donald Trump and lower costs on housing and health care, making our streets safer by taking the dangerous weapons that you just mentioned off of our streets. And of course, we need to make sure that we focus on this Iran war that is a forever war that is making gas prices skyrocket and making prices across the board go up, as well as the chaotic and corrupt policies of the tariffs that Donald Trump is using to enrich himself and his family members. And of course, one of the biggest ticket items is the cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act to the tune of $1 trillion, which means that a family of four is going from $500 a month to $2,000 a month. We need people who understand the struggles of working families, and I've been able to deliver for them in the Colorado State House, and I will do that in Congress.
Briefly to each of you, in your time in the State House, are there any votes that you seriously regret, that you look back on and say, I got that one wrong? Mr. Runo.
I don't think so. I can't think of one right now.
Okay, Ms. Byrd.
I don't think that there's a vote that I got wrong, but I wish I had been there for final passage of Senate Bill 276 to be able to cast that vote.
That is the bill that would have put restrictions on ICE that you voted against in committee.
It's
said
not
that you
an Apple
would have
product.
voted.
It's a country, damn it.
Oh, God. Like, I do think that Manny is the candidate here. Like, he's got experience. I'm not exactly wowed by his presence, but he's the candidate to keep an eye on in this particular race. All right. Especially because they're going after a freshman incumbent Republican who has fucked over the people of Colorado repeatedly. So I'm excited to see how this race turns out on top of Melat Kiros. But also, one of the big races to keep an eye on, and I believe the primary is August 11th. Double check that real quick. It's August 11th. I was correct. Is this particular race for governor in Wisconsin? Because Wisconsin is a big deal. And one of the things that a lot of people have been slow to realize is that when we organized years ago to flip the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin, the downstream effect of that is making a political candidacy like Francesca Hong's possible, because we've had a pretty good Democrat in control of Wisconsin for quite some time. But Francesca Hong is someone who could genuinely shake up the status quo and move the state farther to the left in a way that actually delivers for people in the state. And I wanted to play this for you guys.
You know that the ultra-rich and mega corporations pay a lower tax rate than everyday Wisconsinites like you and me? So when we say tax the ultra-rich, we mean fairness, fiscal responsibility, funding our future, and fixing a rigged system.
That is Wisconsin State Representative and self-described Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong, who last year launched what many would consider a long-shot candidacy for Wisconsin governor. But early polls show her as one of the front runners ahead of the Democratic Party on August 11th. Representative Hong joins us now, and I'll refer to you as Francesca. So you are a chef, a bartender, single mom. You've served as a state rep since 2020. Your platform's described as deeply progressive. You advocate for universal child care, rolling back school vouchers, raising teachers' salaries and the minimum wage, taxing corporations and high earners, just to name a few. What is it about you think your story and your message that you think is resonating with primary voters, Francesca?
Many working class people have felt left behind, and to know that there is someone who is a working class person right now fighting for these very practical policies, that's resonating with folks all across the state.
Well, as you know, Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani won the New York City mayoral race last year. In the Los Angeles mayoral race, two of the candidates, Spencer Pratt and Nithya Raman, they differ politically, but they both say that the establishment incumbent Karen Bass failed their city. Do you think this is a new brand of politics, and do you see yourself in that mold?
A brand of politics that is centering working class people, I think, is a brand of politics that we should all be fighting for. And as the state representative for a very progressive district, I've carried my message to rural, urban, and suburban areas, and it's resonating. I think that this is what folks demand and deserve from their government.
Some establishment Democrats worry the elevation of such candidates could bite them in the general. What do you say to that?
I think it's more dangerous to underestimate our voters, to appear out of touch. There is a lot of frustration with the establishment and the status quo. To not fight for transformative change, I think, would be irresponsible.
The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported that Capital One sued you for nearly $30,000 in credit card debt last month. A spokesperson for your campaign told the publication it's paid. What's your response to someone who questions whether you can manage the state budget?
I wish we lived in a society that would see the fact that so many people across this country have credit card debt, as well as, instead of having a honest personal financial mistakes, be a reflection of what the budget process would be for a governor like me. I think it's important that folks see themselves in their leadership and know that I'm one of them fighting for them.
So in that vein, we've seen Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner embroiled in controversy, yet he's likely to become the nominee. Do you think in 2026 voters...
Honestly, the thing that I would fault her on at all so far is just very, a very calm demeanor. And I think, letting a little bit more personality shine through would be ideal. But so far, none of these answers have been bad. They've just been very careful.
Are thinking more about policy over the person.
Uh-oh.
I mean, we just interviewed Bernie Sanders, and he said, when I think you look at politics in general, there are no saints in the U.S. Senate. He says we need allies in the Senate who have the guts to take on big money. Is that something that you agree with? The policy matters more than the person?
The policy matters more than the person because the people deserve a government that delivers for them with policies that will improve the material conditions of their lives. Public education, childcare, housing, making sure folks can access food and have opportunity to live the life that they deserve. I think this is what government should be doing. Government can and needs to be a force of good.
And so you think if somebody has, if somebody like Plattner, for example, who has apologized, we should mention, has some of these controversies in his past, it should not preclude them from running or winning, or representing the people?
Look, working class folks have been fighting all.
What is happening here? We need to.
Did you know that the
Good golly.
At their lives, public education, childcare. This is what government should.
Has some of these controversies in his past, it should not preclude them from running or winning, or representing the people.
Look, working class
I'd love
folks
it
have
if
been.
she just said, most Americans can relate to credit card debt. Most Americans can't relate to being in the Epstein files.
This is the thing, right? Like my main criticism of her just seeing this short clip is like, get a little bit punchier, you know, use this as an opportunity, not just to like be like, yeah, I have credit card debt, but also like you got to defend and then you got to throw a counterpunch, you know?
Fighting all of their lives, and they aren't working to be vetted by the consulting class and political elite. I think someone who makes people feel like there's someone in their government that is in their corner, that is fighting for them and not corporate interests, is something that all politicians should be thriving for.
Francesca Hong, thank you.
Like this is, I think, like she did fine. I don't think she got new people super interested in her. I don't think she hurt herself here. But like if she had wanted to make it more of a net win, getting punchier, having like some more charisma on display, I think would have been good. That being said, she's running. She's doing cool stuff. We got so many people coming up in the Democratic Party, and I don't think that they're going to be stopped. And the best part about it is this is very clearly not limited to the kingmakers like Zoran Mamdani or AOC, because this is all trickling down ballot. And I think that is what is terrifying establishment Dems the most. It is not just limited to New York City geographically. It is not just limited to who, you know, Zoran Mamdani shouts out or AOC shouts out, because more and more you're seeing stories like this. This was from a couple days ago. Newcomer Amar Mukunda poised to oust Maryland's Senate Majority Leader. First-time candidate at 33 years old. Was on the brink Wednesday of becoming Maryland's latest breakthrough candidate, rising from political obscurity to defeat the state Senate's majority leader in Tuesday's primary election. Mukunda, an Army Reserve combat engineer and former assistant director of the violence intervention group ROCA, led Senator Nancy King, 76, by about 1,100 votes as of Wednesday evening, a commanding lead in a race in which roughly 8,300 votes have been tallied. State Board of Elections has had yet to post the results of the provisional ballots and some mail-in ballots. Right? But we have stories here of up-and-coming, no-name progressives being able to build up a ground game, being able to build up political support from real people in the community, and then powerhouse their way in to overthrow establishment figures. Right? And in this case, it's a state level election. You know, it's the state, state Senate majority leader. But this is terrifying. This is terrifying if you are an establishment Democrat, because it is cutting you off at the root. It means that there is not more systemic support coming up to help you. Instead, it's coming up to end you. And that rising tide is deeply, deeply scary to the Hakeem Jeffries and the Chuck Schumers. And I think it's about damn time. It's about damn time for them to be a little bit worried about how things are going when they don't do shit for working class people in America for years and let a fascist waltz into power and then fail to do anything meaningful to stop him. So, anyway, folks, organize. That is the message and moral of today's video. Organize. Organize, organize, organize. Now is the time to be doing it. Join your local Dems, join your local DSA, join your local political campaigns you believe in. Knock on doors, phone bank, text bank, do research, do the things that make a difference here, folks. We can help you get started joining your local Dems and joining your local DSA. We can give you tips and tricks on how to organize within those respective groups. So, folks, if you need help, join our Discord, reach out to Gamergy for help organizing your local DSA, reach out to Dragonfly for help organizing your local Dems, and, well, we can help you make that work. Last but not least, folks, check out ImogeneOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. Check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com, link down in the description. And last but not least, for real this time, remember to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think about these up-and-coming challengers, and also how do establishment Dem tiers taste? I think they taste pretty good. Anyway, with all that being said, let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and switchy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, being plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.